were all laughing at. We made a comment, and the kids had no idea what we were talking about. One of the coaches made a MacGyver comment.
Oh, yeah.
Kids
There's a
had no-
MacGyver show on now.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's like a remake.
Maybe now they'll
Kids
start to
had
know
no
what it is.
idea what
Yeah.
MacGyver was. Like, I can do everything.
Well,
MacGyver.
well, I figured
You want to do a pre-show?
we're live. So I don't know if it was you I was talking to, but there was a coach that was describing the importance of like adjusting your analogies for who you're coaching and like the time period. It's like, all right, if kids don't know what MacGyver is, like stop using the MacGyver analogy. You got to use something else. Like you got to change up, like
Yeah,
you know,
come with
use
something else, sure.
even like you say like, okay, well, you know, you're like a Swiss Army knife. If kids don't use like pocket knives, you gotta like
No,
you gotta
no,
change.
no.
You know, like you gotta change what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's so true. You gotta like just like anything. You
Millennials.
gotta figure out.
Millennials.
It's so true.
Just group us.
Yeah.
Well, it's also about, like I called today to change a reservation. Nobody calls to change a reservation. Everybody does it on an iPad or a phone or something.
Yeah.
But I had to call because I wanted to use points, and the company that now has SPG is Marriott, and I'm not linked. So I was like, okay, now what do I do? So I sat on hold. And I'm like, would you like to talk? Oh, God.
I want to talk to a human.
Yeah, they make it as hard as possible to talk to a human.
Oh, my
They
God.
don't want to. Yeah, they don't want to talk.
They don't
to
want to hire people.
No, what they hope is somewhere in the process you get frustrated and just surrender.
Yeah.
I believe
So
in the
true.
surrender theory.
Yeah,
like, you
the
know, like-
surrender theory is definitely
we
like
on?
a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're live here.
We're
Definitely
live?
a surrender
Good.
theory.
We'll talk about the surrender event.
Yeah, so we got a good show tonight. We have
We do a pre-show.
special guests.
Before we do it.
Right now, our pre-show, we're just talking, chit-chatting, getting good and good. How you feeling? I feel like you're very comfortable in front of the camera, Coach Hungerford.
I'm good.
feel like
I
you're
don't know, I've never
natural.
done it before. First, we'll figure it out.
You've been interviewed enough. You've been interviewed a few times in your day. It's just usually about the
I've been
game.
deposed more than I've been interviewed.
You know, it's a,
Are you in it? Have you ever been interviewed after a loss?
No.
So in college, every guy is getting interviewed in the press
yeah.
room.
sure, win or lose.
And I'm like, it's gotta get so old after losses.
Now you know why Dennis Green was so angry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I wouldn't want to talk to anybody after I lose.
no.
I mean,
Halftime's tough too.
That's my wife.
exactly. Nobody likes to lose.
Absolutely
Like
not.
reporters got to chase down coaches at halftime. That's tough, you know, especially if you had a bad half and you're just thinking about what you want to talk to your players about. I notice a lot of times coaches talk to the reporter, you know, they kind of like, in their mind, they play out what they want to say to their players to the reporter. So it's like a way to like vent a little bit. Like, listen, I know I have to do this. It's part of our
Like
contract.
talking to Nick Saban, David and I have a national championship game. He was a little salty.
Yeah.
A little bit
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
After losing a game like that,
Yeah, like in the middle of the game, like at halftime, like,
he doesn't want to talk to anybody.
no.
How about you ever hear
Belichick.
Popovich, the guy Craig Sager who passed away? He used to just like ignore everything he said. He was unbelievable. It's funny.
Popovich is one of those guys.
I was talking to my brother, and you know, it's you know, when your kids are playing at the college level, and the scores aren't going your way, and in the beginning of the season, it's like you start to think, oh, you know, what's going wrong? But the reality is that, like you've been watching a lot of college lacrosse. There's so much talent out there now. Like Hobart, I watched the Hobart Binghamton game. Jamie Archer, the JD coach's kid, he starts at attack.
legit.
Very
He's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
He's awesome.
I watched the Cornell game.
Didn't he play against you when you were at Cold Spring?
Yeah, when we were at Cold Spring. Yeah,
He was one of the attackmen, right?
correct.
Yeah. He is really talented.
He's very good. Everybody's got guys.
Oh my God.
Everybody has players.
It's so true. And meanwhile, the Conan kid, the Massapequa kid, Jimmy Conan's kid,
Conan's son.
he's having a great career at Binghamton. He didn't even play at Pequa.
No, not too much.
Really?
I think
Hardly played.
Hardly played.
Wow.
And he's really, I mean, he gets to the cage.
Jimmy's a good man.
He,
Yeah.
he gets to the cage. He's good.
Yeah, he's good.
I was impressed with Griffin's his name. I was
Cliff
very
Conan, yeah.
I was very
Nice-
impressed
Very
with him.
nice kid too.
Cool.
Very nice.
All right, so we're at 7:30. People are starting to dial in. I think, you know, we'll do our show open, and then I'll outline what we're going to talk about tonight. You know, I think the biggest thing when we have someone like you on, which is great, Coach Hug, is just if you have stories about like anything that relates to the topics, share them, because people love to hear, like through your experiences, some of your stories about specific kids, about maybe a journey because you were part of a special team or a special game. So those are things that you should kind of just keep in the back of your mind tonight as we talk about that. So Frank, you want to maybe do show open, and then we'll get going with our first segment here?
Yep. And here we go.
BYG.
I watched maybe 3 episodes. And where's Uganda shirt? I love the Uganda shirt episode. That was tremendous.
We're live.
What's happening, guys? We're live tonight. We've got Coach Hungerford with us, which is good. We got the head coach of Farmingdale High School, Coach Hug. How we feeling tonight?
Pretty good.
Good, man.
Long day. Practice started yesterday, but we're good to go.
We appreciate you coming on. I know it's
for having
a
me.
little late, but we have a good show tonight. We're going to be talking about the history of the game, specifically on Long Island. We're going to be talking about your coaching journey. We're going to be talking about we do a segment called Reality Check. So we think you're a great person to kind of keep things real and keep things in perspective because of your experience and what you've been through. We want to talk a little bit about your success as a head coach and as an assistant coach. We want to talk about tonight the importance of not just multi-sport athletes, but you're a multi-sport coach. Why do you coach multiple sports and how does that help your kids? So that's something we'll talk about tonight. We also do a segment called Bizarre versus Normal. So we bring up different topics that, we talk about how things have evolved from being at one time normal to now being bizarre, vice versa. So we want to talk about kids swapping their commitments. That's one thing we want to talk about, and we want to talk about how the recruiting process has changed in your opinion. And then the last thing we'll do is talk Long Island Lacrosse. So we can talk about like your team this year. We can talk about the landscape of Long Island Lacrosse, how it's changed, and things along those lines. So let's maybe start. We want to take everyone back to maybe your college days, talk about where you played or even where you grew up, and all the way to where you played, and then talk about your kind of your coaching journey.
Okay, well, like Coach Wink over here, something in common, right? Ithaca College, Ithaca, New York.
Frank, can you pull up that
One of
picture?
the,
Actually, we have
One of the greatest places on earth.
At best.
Coach, what does that picture mean to you right there?
That's old school right there. I don't think it went in. No, I don't think it went in.
Who's the guy in the background?
Danny Feldman. That guy could tackle you in football and he could hit you in lacrosse.
He's a two-sport athlete?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
Very much
that's a white Ithaca jersey. Does that mean you're home or away in that picture?
Home.
We're home. We're all home. They don't actually nobody plays there on that field anymore. What a beautiful place. Not like different place. That was
Is that the grass field down there?
one of the grass lower fields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the environment like on that grass field down the hill for those games?
Well, I don't know if everybody watched the Hopkins-Carolina game where they played at Carolina on the football field. I guess someone decided that was okay to do that to the football field. Someone was texting me during the game, and I said, I think I played 25 games or 30 games in my college career in 4 years. That would have been good. I mean, if we were taking that, it was very similar to like playing Ithaca, New York. You were on grass, and it was muddy. It wasn't muddy. Some games you get every weather condition in the course of the game. You get some sun, you get some rain, some snow, clouds, warm, cold, everything in between.
And they used to take a yellow rope cord, put it around the field, and then the fields would have, and it was literally 5 yards from the sideline or 8 yards from the sideline.
Oh yeah, kids would come and I guess people call it now with pregame, in the middle of the day, and they come to the game and.
Well, they would just in my years they would just bring it.
Yeah, back then we were like super.
Were you in school was drinking age 18 or 21?
I chased that all the way through. I was 18, and I got to be 19, I got to be 21. I was like behind the 8 ball. Yeah.
So the elements were more of a factor back then when you played because most
elements
people
were
on
a factor.
grass.
Sticks
No
were
turf.
different. The whole game. And we used to go. Jeff Long was my coach. He was his first year. My sophomore year was his first year. He's still the coach now, Hall of Famer. Great coach.
Great
and
player.
A great person. Great player. Great everything. And so we we would used to go when it was snow on the ground. We had to go in the gym, or we would somehow get a hold of we'd go to Shelkoff or to Cornell on the turf at Shelkoff, the old asphalt turf and the old turf, and we would go there at like odd hours, because Cornell would practice whatever the regular time was, and whatever time we could get our hands on. Sometimes it was 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. I remember one night we went there. I think I broke every goalie stick I had in the practice because it was so cold. It was thick. I was like, I'm done. I guess I'll just watch. I had no sticks left or whatever. So.
And they didn't have sticks just waiting for you like they do today.
No,
Sure.
different world, but it was a different situation. But yeah, it was Central New York.
What was the program like when you were there? You guys successful?
I was like an in between guys, like I am much of my life. We were not very successful when I was there, but I think we were the bridge between a prior success, like when you were there. Very successful with a couple coaching changes. My coach my freshman year left to go coach more college football.
Kevin Spencer?
Kevin Spencer coaching the NFL. It was like special teams coach of the year a couple
Did
times.
you play with
in the
Tommy
NFL.
Corcoran, the West Islip coach?
We're very good friends, yes. We played the same year together. Yeah, we're
no way.
still working.
You're the exact same year?
Exact same year.
He's a great guy.
Great guy. And So I was like, we were like the bridge, and then when Jeff took over, we weren't very good. Matter of fact, we were pretty bad for like a couple of years. My senior year, we were like below average, we weren't terrible, like we were the year before, and then or 2 years before. And then I think Jeff kept bringing in more guys, better guys, and winning programs, and West Jenny guys, and guys from other places, and then all of a sudden, the year after I graduated, kind of flipped, and it's never really flipped back. It's kind of been consistently
They've been in the top
winning-
20 for
winning every single
20
year.
some odd
One of the
years.
more, I would say, one of the more consistent Division III programs for a very, very long time.
When did you realize that you wanted to be a coach? At what point?
Oh, I actually had an opportunity in college. I actually considered maybe doing like a GA kind of a thing, but I like didn't pursue it. That was a mistake on my part. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but it was certainly an option I had to maybe pursue that. And then I got out of college and I was a history major and didn't know what I wanted to do, and did in Long Island, just kind of did some stuff like local jobs. It was nothing like we would call a career. And then I guess one day I just kind of started like, I should come to teaching. I had some education classes in college, and then I couldn't see myself teaching without coaching, sort of. So kind of, I don't know exactly when, but
Where'd you grow up?
Figured out in Farmingdale.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what's it like for you to go from growing up in one town and then now kind of going full circle? Now you're the head coach and you've taken over a program in that same town. What does that mean to you?
Well, there was a time when I didn't think I would ever be the head coach there, just because timing is timing, and Coach Harraff was there and he was going right along, and I was assistant coach and very happy doing that, and I didn't really have goals necessarily to be a head coach. I probably could have said if that wasn't really necessarily a set goal at one point, and I was very happy. But it's interesting to be in the head coach there now, and just a very prideful thing. I think you care a bit more about the place, you care because you went there, and you're part of something that I think has been very successful for a long time.
You also know the history as a player, the history as a assistant coach, and you know the history now as a head coach. So like, that's what I love, one of the things I love about when we get together is talking about the history of not just Farmingdale, but Long Island lacrosse.
Yeah.
We found, can you pull up that other picture, Frank, that second one? We found this in the office the other day. So we were sent a collection of every Inside Lacrosse magazine from our buddies at PowerTech, and this one came up. Can you tell us a little about the two Farmingdale guys in that picture?
There's
and
three
when they
people, and
played?
so on the left that's Mathanowski, and in the foreground, I guess the front you would say is Drew Thompson, and the back right is Steve Pettarelli, and that was actually shot in our old locker room, which is now our weight room. You don't see that. If you pulled up the rubber in the weight room, the tile floor is probably still under it. But that was our old team room. And after their senior year, it was kind of around the beginning, I think, Inside Lacrosse, just starting to really do like recruit rankings.
Yep.
Just starting to really cover who was ranked number one. Those are the top three recruits in the country. Drew
Two
at the
from
midfield,
two from one high school.
two from one high school.
Three from
Very
Long
lucky.
Island.
Three from Long Island,
And you just said Drew Thompson is arguably one of the best players you've ever seen.
Drew Thompson was a very, very good player. Very good player. Played on some very good teams in Northport High School. Was a tremendous player. Very good player at college, and great high school player. And I look at like lacrosse. I kind of bridge a couple different times. I played in the '80s. I played originally in high school when there was no A, B's, C's. There was no classifications. To be the county champion, line up and beat everybody. And
Cold Spring Harbor played Sachem.
Right, 1979.
When Sachem was
like
one.
80 or something like that. Yeah, like crazy, right? Like,
Yeah, they lost
That
in
was like
overtime.
the state championship, right?
That was
back then?
Yeah, I think it was.
That was state championship,
Yeah.
I think, in 1979, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when my senior year, they started to go A and B, and eventually now we have A, B, and C, and now we have A, B, C, and D. So I kind of one of those guys that kind of bridges a couple different generations of lacrosse, of how the game was played, how the game was coached.
Can you
what
talk?
people
Can you
knew.
talk a little about that? Let's start with how the game was played. So, like from the time you were playing in the '80s at Farmingdale to how it's played now today with your own teams. Talk about the style of the play, how they're similar, different.
I just think people forget sometimes. There's a guy on Instagram, like Lacrosse Island.
Yeah, he does a
has
great job.
videos.
Great
Great
stuff.
videos, right? And you forget that there was a time when, kids, if anybody's watching who plays high school lacrosse, every time the ball went out of bounds, there was a horn.
Yeah.
And everybody subbed, and the game was played very slow. In college, teams like West Point, Army rode with 9 poles at one point.
Yeah.
Rode with 9
There
poles.
was 1 year they allowed that.
Right. Yeah, they could, and people played defensively. We played defensively from the high school routinely with 6 poles.
Wow.
So like, hey, Dodge was shorty. There was no shorty. Dodge was a pole. It was a different dynamic, And I like to think, listening to Coach Harraff and Coach Krumenacker, Buddy Krumenacker, who's still the football coach at Farmingdale, who was an assistant lacrosse coach, and talking to those guys about, there was a time when, football guys, football linemen were defensemen.
Yeah.
And the attackmen were crafty, slick guys, and they were dodging, tackles and guards. And I think into the 80s, it really flipped. I think Farmingdale was one of those places. I think Coach Harraff was one of those guys that defense became very important to him, and taking the best athletes and making them into defensemen. I think he was one of the first people really to make a priority of that, where it wasn't just a team had one guy who was really good because he happened to pick the defense, but you pick a bunch of guys, 2 guys in every grade, or 3 guys in every grade who are, a DB on the football team, a point guard or a linebacker in football, or a point guard.
Well, Dennis at Cold Spring, who you coach with, prides himself
very
on
much so.
his goals against. And obviously,
yeah.
Dennis was a defenseman growing up in Sewanaka and playing at Hofstra. But the goals against isn't as big a deal because it's kind of like what's happening in other sports. It's like scoring.
Yeah, everybody wants the offense.
Right.
Yeah, the days of you look at scores from the 80s, and people would get 8, 9 goals, 10 goals. There was a lot of goals being scored, even just by the nature of the game being played different. With riding, with the horn every time. Think about how we worked a lot of riding because the horn blew every time.
Yeah.
And you could set up in a ride and get organized. It wasn't just pick it up and blow the whistle and go.
Yeah,
So
sideline plays,
really
sideline
changed.
out of bounds plays.
Yeah, and there's programs that were in the 80s that were, Elmont was tremendous program in the 80s, Elmont. After I graduated, my senior year, I had Pat McCabe, Matt Panetta, those guys, Marinelli brothers, those were all a little bit younger than me, but they ended up being really good. Elmont was at Sewanaka. Sewanaka was a tremendous program, 50s, 60s, 70s, into the 80s. You can't go to a lacrosse game and not trip over somebody.
Richie Moran was a
Sewanaka
Sewanaka
guy.
guy.
The amazing
Engelke
number
boys,
of Sewanaka guys.
the Engelke brothers.
Oh, you could keep naming Sewanaka guys, Eamon McEnany, all these guys. Sewanaka was a powerhouse, and I would say all the time that lacrosse was kind of centered around Hempstead Turnpike in many ways. You had Elmont, and then you had East Meadow. Hempstead was good. Elmont, Hempstead, East Meadow, Bethpage, Farmingdale, all around the Turnpike. All those schools were, and for a lot of reasons, some of them are still pretty good, and some of them have changed.
What's a rivalry back then that existed with Farmingdale, and then one that still exists today for you guys? I noticed you still play Bethpage. Was that something
Bethpage, we
that's
picked
kind
back
of?
up again. We always played Bethpage.
You kind of revive that rivalry.
Yeah, we always play them in a non-league game.
Yep.
And usually on a Saturday. It was a lot of fun game. We had a good time.
Sorry, I thought you were
it was a lot of fun. We had a good time, and we always knew those guys. We hung out with them after the game and stuff and everything. It was a pretty cool thing.
Because you're so close.
So close.
Geographically.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then when my senior year, they became a smaller school, a B school. So we just played a non-league game. Before that, we all competed for the same thing. I brought that back last year, and we brought that back last year and played them. We're going to keep playing them. Kind of a cool thing.
Was Pequot a rivalry back when you were a kid?
We weren't in the same league, so we met in the playoffs. Maybe when I was in school, we didn't meet in the playoffs, but I think shortly after I graduated, Pequot really was doing okay and got much better, and then there was like a tremendous rivalry.
Because that's the biggest rivalry for you guys, no? Because you're so close?
Well, I mean, listen, we haven't beaten them in a while, so our rivalry is supposed to go both ways. I've been calling a rivalry again if we can win a couple of games, but I'm being pretty honest. But yeah, I would say it's in every sport, it's a pretty big thing. Football, basketball, every sport, it's a pretty significant. Baseball, it's a pretty significant. We're all in the same leagues against each other because we're in the. It's geographic.
But also being geographically right next to each other.
Geographic, it's also school size, so
yeah,
big deal. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how times have changed. Hicksville was always a huge game, all the way through. Whether Hicksville was really talented or not.
Got the Stopers, Coach Cromwell, a lot of coaches from
the
today,
Walkers,
right?
all the Walkers,
Cromwell,
Tommy Kessler.
Yeah,
Sure.
I coached against all those guys.
Yeah, that must have been fun.
Yeah, they were very, very good teams.
Brian
Good
Towers.
coaches.
Yeah,
Brian.
He's a Hicksville boy.
yeah. A lot of good kids.
Yeah.
Harry
was always a
Jacobs
big
is a
rival.
Hicksville guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You want to go way
All
back?
the way back.
Harry's like my age.
Oh yeah.
I want to move into our next segment because we could probably spend all day talking history, and we can definitely we can do that another time, which would be good. But I want to talk about the segment on reality check. So what the purpose of tonight's kind of as it relates to this is like, hey, I'm a high school kid, or hey, I'm a coach and I run a high school program. How do I see success? So I can talk from a player's perspective because I'm not too far removed from that, getting there. But like, I've been a part of successful teams and teams that didn't win as much as we wanted. And I know as a player, like how you need to play and how you need to go about your business to be successful. And then as a coach, you can kind of speak on that. So to start, I want to talk about your success as an assistant coach. So Frank, can you pull up the picture of those kids celebrating, if you don't mind? So this is Cold Spring Harbor. So there,
that's a good memory right there.
You won 2 state championships with them.
Oh yeah, I've been pretty lucky in my life to show up at places at good moments.
Yeah, sure.
My first coaching job, I coached at Plainview High School. Joe Baccarello, who's now coaching me at Farmingdale, he asked me to be the assistant coach. We happened to get there, and there were kids in the 8th grade who were committed to wanting to be good lacrosse players. And 4 or 5 years later, we were pretty decent. We made the playoffs, we competed, and we battled, and we had a Nassau County Player of the Year and a high school American.
Who was that?
And Joe Barilli, Nassau County Player of the Year. Evan Kostuka, I would mention All-American, I guess, but made the junior world team.
That's cool.
But you have to have people in a place for that to happen. You're not going to just pull kids out of a hallway. We didn't work there. They wanted to be part of something like that.
So the successful Farmingdale team, the successful Cold Spring team, what did those kids, talk about the players, what did they have in common? Talk about their intangibles.
I think every place you go, I think every high school coach you brought in this room, in any sport they coached, whether it would be from any team sport, I think the kids spending a lot of time together, growing up, playing together in the age group, and it might not be 1 year. The 1 year could be all you need, but it could be just a great group of seniors, or it could be the seniors and the juniors getting along really well. I think every program that has that period of time, or consistently has it every year. Look at Wood Melville; they seem to they win all the time, right? In lacrosse, they're not alone. Garden City, Wood Melville, a lot of places, but you have groups that they've gone all the way through together, and they're very willing to. Everyone's kind of accepted at certain things all the way they are in a good way. Like certain guys have certain roles that they've accepted on the team.
They bought in.
They bought in, and they're willing to go to. They're willing to. And I'm not a big fan of using those military type terms, But they're willing to go to war for each other. You know what I mean? They're willing to They're willing to do what it takes to win, because that's my boys. And from when I was like 9, we did this all together. You know what I mean? And
the success, though, that I've noticed from the teams you're mentioning, the Melvilles, the GCs, the programs like that, Farmingdale, we could talk about back in the day. Even when Comswag was good, when Kevin Cassis was their quarterback, best midi, they were multi-sport kids. So they were, when you say go to war, like we talk about GC all the time, why is GC tend to have Manhasset's number more? I personally believe it's because those kids play multiple sports and they're battle tested. We'll use that word. They're ready to go, and when they're ready to go, they're ready to go.
I don't think it's definitely necessarily related to any one sport. I mean, I've coached kids who played soccer who were tough as nails. I mean, like Timmy Parker played lacrosse at Hicksville, and he plays in the MLS now. And I hear he might make the world team or something one day. I mean, he was pretty tough guy. He was like 185 pounds in high school. I mean, he didn't have to play football to be tough. But as someone who spent a long time coaching high school football, maybe I would say I'm a little partial to it, maybe. But you could doesn't have to be any sport. It could be basketball, whatever.
Wrestling helps.
Farmingdale, we've been very lucky. We've had a lot of Coach Garcia, coach for me, coached the wrestling team there, and I Coach Weidel. We had a lot of wrestlers over the years.
Why do you and other people on your staff at Farmingdale for the men's lacrosse team, why do they coach other sports?
I think we all just like something else that we do. I mean, it's.
Why do you coach football?
I've come to really love it. I mean, like one of those things it's a very unique, and maybe if I wasn't in a place where we were so successful, I'd feel differently about it.
So you feel like you grow as a coach because you're a part of that program?
Absolutely. I think there's things you learn coaching a different sport. Practice is different. The organization of practice is different. How you do things are different. I think how you treat kids, you're still a teacher, educating kids in whatever the activity happens to be. I think someone who's a really good coach could learn to coach anything if they learned it.
I agree.
But yet, I think you learn a lot about yourself as a coach. You learn a lot about certain things. Like football is a highly organized activity. So I think I bring a lot of that, how we organize ourselves and do certain things to lacrosse. It doesn't have to be that way. Like I'm one of those people that hates it when people say it has to be this way. There's a million ways to skin the cat.
Right.
There's a lot of ways you can get things done.
Well, Buddy Krumanacker, who's the head football coach at Farmingdale, who's been one of your mentors through your life,
Major mentor. Yeah.
was Coach Hartraft's assistant for many years. So he
Absolutely.
obviously, and then and number 40, which you give out at Farmingdale, is in honor of his brother, correct?
Brother John, yep.
Yep.
Great high school and college player at Johns Hopkins. Won 2 national championships and passed away at a young age. And
Do you want to explain how that tradition works for people that don't know?
Well,
The
basically,
40 jersey?
I think what we did was the year after when John passed, the coaching staff headed by Coach Hartraft and Coach Kay and Coach Krumman decided that John had won 40 in high school and was like if you knew John, he's like one of those really good guys, like friend of everybody, very popular, like popular guy without trying to be popular, like friendly without trying to be friendly, like
Genuine.
People don't speak bad words about a guy like that ever, and wanted to remember his memory by giving every year a player to wear his number 40. So we started. We don't give it out every year. It has to be the right person. We've been lucky enough. We've been on a pretty good run of. It doesn't have to be the best player on the team either. That's a misnomer. People think the best guy is going to wear number 40. That's
He
not
doesn't have to
necessarily the
be
case.
as good as John Krummenacker was.
No. I think a lot of our standard is how you carry yourself, how you live your life, and how you do things on an everyday basis, what kind of kid you are, how you are to others and stuff. And we've had a variety of kids wear it, from Matt Tanowski, Kevin Brennan played at Duke, and Matt, of course, probably one of the, I would say one of the very, very best to ever play lacrosse in Nassau County or in Long Island.
Well, he was a three-sport athlete.
Right.
They say he was an unbelievable basketball player.
Yeah, unbelievable at all sports.
I know he's a great football player, but
we've had a lot of guys wear that number, and they've just been those kind of guys who
Dallas
represented.
Creamer?
Dallas Creamer's wore it. Matt DeLucas, the goalie at
Delaware.
wore it. And,
Brian Michael, right?
Brian Michael in the Air Force Academy wore it this year. We have Matt Allbetter, a team who's not even going to play this year.
Yep. That's amazing. Is that the first time you've ever had a kid who's not playing wear that jersey?
Well, I think so, yeah.
That's pretty
Actually,
impressive.
That says a
he
lot
wore
about
it.
Matt.
Yeah.
He wore it, and his older brother wore it.
No way.
So two people,
That's really cool.
first time we have
Oh,
family
that's
members
cool.
wear that. It's very cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, special kid Matt Allbetter. Very, very special.
Yeah, he's a great kid.
Oh my God. Yeah,
He's a kid that
so.
he would do anything to be able to get back on the field, but physically you just can't. So like,
No, not right now.
you feel
God willing,
you feel
he'll be
for a
back
kid
for
like
a
that.
Olympic post next
He'll be a
year.
post next fall.
He'll have a pot. I don't know when it's gonna happen. I don't know what it's gonna be. There's gonna be a moment this season where he's gonna help you guys win, and I don't know when that's gonna come, but I know it's gonna happen. Just because
I
the
can
type of
give you a
kid he
couple
is.
days. I'd like it to be.
You're funny.
All right, so let's move on here. Bizarre versus normal. This is our next segment.
Sure.
One thing we want to talk about tonight is basically the process of what's happening in the whole recruiting landscape of things. We're seeing a lot of kids. We talk to people all the time, and you see it out there. What they're doing is they're committing earlier than they really should because they haven't done all their research. And what they're doing is they're holding on to that commitment until they realize maybe a better opportunity comes along the way. So they're flip-flopping. Coaches are recruiting other kids who are verbally committed. It's ruining relationships between coaches. We're noticing it more on the guys' side than the girls' side. That's what we want to talk about it. Like, in your experience, what are your thoughts on it? How can you combat it? Like, and how come it's gotten to this point? Like, talk about the evolution of this thing.
I've been around long enough to see. I was was lucky enough to coach the sport before there was even club.
Yep.
So I actually in some ways I predate club, and a club has been probably one of the main avenues of getting recruited now. Like a lot of other sports have become. I don't know if you really can combat it because there's so many forces at work. There's so many different angles that have relevance. I don't know if you really can combat it. You need to combat it as much as you just want to educate people on the options. I'm going to put it out there. I do think in some ways it's been hijacked by people that have the wherewithal to pay for college. That if you feel like you don't have to worry about that, you're going to be able to pay for college, that you could afford to send your son or daughter wherever you can afford to send them, and you could, if it's going to be $270,000 for 4 years, if you know you could pay for that, that gives you a lot. I think a lot of you're empowered a lot in the game. What I mean, in the process, because you could commit to a school without any necessarily financial. Everybody likes to have that though, because they want to tell people that.
Yeah.
They want to they're getting a scholarship or
money,
they want some money from it, or maybe they sense that getting money, receiving a financial commitment from a school is also a real commitment that you're committing to me by giving me scholarship money. You really want me here, and you think I could be a good player. But I do think that there are maybe because I sit at the chair at Farmingdale High School, and we're a middle class school, and a lot of our kids they need some They need some money financially to make it work, but they can't necessarily walk into a coach's room, a coach's office, and be like, okay, I'm good for 270. Just I'll take the spot right now.
Yeah.
With no solid commitment of a scholarship.
Do you think it has a lot to do with that? They're looking at it like, well, I'm taking this opportunity, and then if something better comes along, something to get it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the moral and values are being left on the side. The other thing is they don't want to do the work. So we, obviously, as you know, we speak to a lot of families, and we speak to a lot of moms and dads, and we speak to a lot of kids. Kids generally don't want to go every weekend away from their high school friends and go visit schools because it takes them out of their high school social setting. So it's the parents' job to say, no, we're going to visit these 3 schools or these 2 schools or whatever. And then the parents start to get like, wow, this is getting overwhelming.
Sure.
Well, in reality, it should be like, no, what would be, let's say you're not an athlete. Like your daughter and my daughter, they went to school, didn't play sports.
No.
You visited a bunch of schools. I waited to see what schools they got into so that I didn't go visit a school that they didn't get into.
I did a lot of the same thing, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You might have given me that advice, yeah.
But the reality is you still did your homework.
Sure.
And said, okay, JMU is a better fit than, the University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Right.
Towson's a better fit than Loyola for many
Correct.
reasons for my particular daughter.
Yeah, I think the advice I've always given people, but it'll never change, is when you go to a school, walk around and picture yourself, if you're not playing lacrosse there, what life would be like if you couldn't play for whatever reason. If one day you got up and God forbid you had an illness or you couldn't play anymore, or you stopped playing because the coach left and someone else became the coach which you didn't like, or you played for a year and you fell out of love with the game and you just didn't want to, or you go there every day and realize I'm on the 5th midfield and I'm expected to work really, really hard because that man or woman, depending if on the woman's side, or it could be a man on the women's side, either way, that's how they're paying their mortgage on. It's a full-time job for them. It's not my full-time job. I'm a teacher at Farmingdale High School, and I love lacrosse and I love coaching football, but it helps. It makes it nice to be compensated for your work, but that's those people doing that for a living.
Yeah.
So it's a big challenge for people to go there and do that homework and think about what the place is like with or without those things.
I think also too, and you can touch on this, if a kid goes to school and he doesn't like it, and let's say he didn't kind of put himself in those shoes, like, hey, if I'm not playing well, I like the school. If a kid's there, doesn't like lacrosse aspect, doesn't like the school, what's that process like for some of the kids in your experience where it's like they have to transfer or come home?
Yeah,
is that an easy process?
It can or it can't be. It all depends on now. We have the portal now. If you're on the team and you don't want to play, you kind of put yourself onto the portal. It used to be more complicated with getting a release.
Right.
But I think the best thing about coaching is one of the best parts of coaching. Forget this winning and losing and stuff and everything. Is trying to help kids make a great life for themselves or be an influential part of their life in a positive way. And when you know that whether someone is good enough to go play at Johns Hopkins or they're going to, a small Division III school because that's the right fit for them, or they're not playing at all because that's the right fit, but you see them and they come back and go, how's school going? They say, oh, it's great, I love it and everything. That's the best thing. That's one of the best parts about coaching is the influence you've had on people. I think it is, at least. And I would say if you don't think that's important, you're probably in this for the wrong reason. That's just my opinion. But
it's relationships, right?
But yeah, I love when kids come back and say, Coach, it was great. Or when kids come back and say, oh no, it's really not. I'm struggling that. You don't feel good about that. You want people to go to the right places. But like you've said a lot of times is if you let the process work itself through, if you give the process the opportunity, usually it works out. Usually it finds a way to work.
If you don't make it, if you don't have to, you shouldn't make the process, oh, I got to do this by this time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny, even if you let the process work itself out completely, it's still a quicker process than a normal student who doesn't play sports.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So it's
Absolutely.
you're really, really speeding it up. It's like, slow down here.
Yeah, you're definitely in that mode.
I wanted to ask real quick before we move on to the next part, just because I just want to stay on track. How do you stay connected with your alumni at Farmingdale and maybe some of the kids you coached at Cold Spring Harbor, or didn't you coach at Plainview too?
Oh, many years ago. Yeah, I actually
how do you kind of
had an opportunity to see a couple of Plainview guys recently that had a death in the family, and I wasn't able to go, and I really feel bad about that because they were really great kids. I think now, it's easier than ever to stay in touch with people between social media and Facebook, and we do a lot with social media with our program. I think it's important. with Instagram.
I just want to give you guys a plug. In our new magazine, we did top 10 Instagram accounts.
They were number one?
All along around. Dalers Lacrosse, number one.
Did you know that?
It wasn't even
No,
close.
I didn't see that in the magazine.
So in the
No,
LILJ, explain to you what you did. You did a top 10?
So there were criteria for how we did the top 10 Instagram accounts. I didn't do this personally. Alexa from our office, who's the head honcho of all of our events, and she's a writer for us. So she did different criteria, like how do you connect with your community? What do you do to promote not just your team, but things outside of lacrosse? So obviously you can post highlights, that's great. But what are you talking about? Like you'll post like team GPA, community
sometimes,
service.
yeah, we community service things. Like
Yep.
the things we do, but are kind of good, and a lot of alumni pictures. I have a lot pretty good
Alumni,
bank of
that's another-
pi-
You
got
old
good
pictures.
alumni.
Yeah.
We have Farmingdale's a
But
place
you got to
that's,
dig a little bit. It's not like
Yeah,
you
it's
just
a little bit of
Google.
work.
I mean, some of the newer
I go
guys.
through peaks and valleys, so there's times where I'm putting out something every day, and then all of a sudden, like right now, I'm in a bit of a valley.
yeah,
you're in the season
Yeah,
now.
I'm in a valley. But people say to me, there's ways you could, maybe I'm not as savvy as I propose to be, right? Purport to be. But there's ways you could archive them and then bring them back and post them later. So some people do like 10 at a time and they'll save
gotcha.
them. But I like to be spur of the moment,
Yeah.
and just go by how you feel.
like, what are you
whatever,
thinking?
Yeah.
Yes,
So we'll
Lori.
see.
Hey, Cor, so I've had two comments. Tim O'Meara?
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, Tim, breakout
I'm
goaltending.
not quite sure if this is a joke or not, because it makes zero sense to me, but I'm hoping that you understand. Corey, please ask Hungy his thoughts on multiple car households. Should I drive just one car, or is variety better? What goes into making the switch from car to car?
This is about your daughters?
No, well, we have, what he's referring to is, but he always sees me. I work with him at Breakout Goaltending. We're a company that trains goalies, does goaltending training. And,
Does a really good job,
and,
by the way.
And thank you. And we have a lot of fun doing it. And I always seem to drive a different car whenever we have training. So I have a couple cars. I have my car. We have an extra car. We have my daughter's car. That's never college. Every once in a while, I take my dad's car. He doesn't drive all the time. So now I'm part of the joke. So now
What do you have, like a
I'm-
Right,
6
well,
month
I'm
lease on it?
reading it and I'm like, this doesn't
Tim,
make
Tim,
any sense.
Tim, you're watching. I give you
about
credit for that. There you go.
lacrosse
appreciate
love
that,
having
brother.
Timmy on.
There you go, Timmy.
And Chris Bucas obviously goes to Hicksville. He said thanks for giving a shout out to Hicksville.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
There you
Hicksville
go.
was
Hicksville
legit.
High. Oh yeah. Oh
Are you
yeah.
I
kidding
remember
me?
watching.
You never
Used to take me to games when I was little. I remember.
Tommy Kessler
remember
was
all
your
these
favorite
games.
player.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He was at
unbelievable.
Hofstra then.
Oh yeah.
We used to have
Great game,
Yeah.
those guys.
He was great. He was great.
Willie Bammeyer and Chuck Arnone, two great coaches.
Yeah, Chuck.
Oh, yeah.
He's coaching with Casper, right?
Oh yeah, yep, Chuck Arnone, great coach.
So-
my 4-star lacrosse camp
Yeah.
roommate.
Star Lacrosse camp. So I want to now. That's a good segue because I want to talk more Long Island lacrosse. But let's talk a little more current Long Island lacrosse. What's happening? So for those of you who don't know and didn't read the magazine, the Dalers were ranked 6th in Nassau County.
Can we talk about how the rankings,
Yeah.
how we get the rankings?
outline?
So I want everybody to understand, for those of you that are watching and will watch this in the future, we ask a bunch of questions to the high school coaches and they fill out a Google form. And the last question is rank the top 10 programs in your county, disregard A, B, C, D. And each coach does a 1 through 10. We then take that data and we put it into a spreadsheet and it spits out who the 1 is, Garden City, who the 2 is, Massapequa, who the 3 is, Manhasset. This is not my opinion. It's not Corey's opinion. It is all of the high school coaches' opinion. We do that both in the boys and the girls. The only one that's slightly different is Nassau Girls. They have a power conference, and they give us a 1 through 10, and they give us in the second 10, they give us a 1 through 5. So that's how that 10 through the 1 through 15 comes up.
Yeah.
So theirs is really done by them. We don't even get
Same
that.
for parochial. So we do who's your top 5?
Parochial,
Yeah.
we do. We kind of discuss that though.
Yeah.
They don't rate their guys.
Yeah.
So like Sacred Heart, and then St. A's. I mean, you can flip flop those two. They beat each other last year. Chaminade and St. A's. I think we put
Yeah.
St. A's one this year in boys. We just
So talk a little bit about your current Daler team. Talk about your senior class, the makeup of your team, and just kind of expectations for the year.
Kind of a small group of seniors,
how many?
7,
Wow.
and if Matt, it's 7. I think I'm including Matt,
Gotcha.
who's not going to play. We
Matty
captain of the
Oldbad at
team,
number 40.
not going to play, but assistant coach,
Assistant coach.
man the iPad on the sidelines. And,
Great sense of humor.
So you got
too,
Luke.
by the way.
Tremendous.
You got Luke Woodland,
Luke Woodland,
Richie
and,
Hickes,
Richie Hickes,
Brian Hayden.
Brian.
Brian Hayden,
Is
Maddie
Zach
Olbetta,
a senior? Or is Zach a junior?
Brandon
Zach's a junior.
Amorati,
Emirati.
and
Olbetta would be 5.
Olbetta would be 5. And I apologize
Any
if I
polls?
apologize
it's
leaving
fine.
anybody
I didn't mean
else.
to put you on the spot, but
No, that's the core group of
Yeah.
the seniors that we have.
So you really have 4 that are playing.
yeah.
Yeah, 4, but basically 4. It's a small senior group, and every group below it is pretty large. Like, when we think the juniors like 17 or 18, and then the
Nice.
sophomores like in the 20s, the freshmen in the 20s, the 8th graders in the 20s.
How's
So
Jake Emke feeling? Is he healthy?
he's healthy. He's like a wild card guy because we played. People don't realize how much of the year we played without him.
I think
last
he's going to
year,
be.
and
I think he's going to make
really
noise
good.
this year. I
Yeah.
think people are going to be talking
We've
about him.
moved some positions around. We've guys are playing a couple different positions, which will be when people see us be a little different. Hopefully it works. Like we hope. Best laid plans, but we think we'll be pretty young defensively. We graduated a number of defensemen and got the goalie back who filled in last year.
Gilman?
Sean Gilman will be back.
He's
who
a
played
junior,
for,
right?
He's a junior. Played for Brody Agris last year, who was missed for years. Seemed to be down a guy every year.
Is he starting at St. John's?
He is.
Starting at St. John's.
That's awesome.
Yep.
How's
Starting
Coach, Coach Dunn doing developing the young defensemen?
doing a great job. Coach John's was probably one of the very best defensive guys anywhere you can find in high school, and does a great job with the D guys. So
The
we're
Jerry
gonna be
Burns
young
of
there.
high school lacrosse.
Oh,
Wow.
That's
don't
Jerry
know.
Burns.
You know who else
He doesn't
is-
have the
you-
charisma yet.
No, he doesn't have Jerry Burns. He does not have Jerry Burns' sense of humor. Jerry Burns has a great sense
Don
of
has a
humor.
good sense of humor.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't have the same sense of
No,
humor.
not the same.
It's
No,
different.
yes.
Jerry Burns has a
Yes.
great sense of humor. But you know who else is a great defensive coach? Is the gentleman from Ward Belleville.
Tremendous.
Woo!
Tremendous. They do a great job
Belleville,
out there. Great job.
What's
out
his
there.
name? Muscarella or something like that?
I believe Musgrove's the defensive guy.
Right.
They have a great staff.
Kills it.
Jay's a really good guy and does a great job. And one of the first people I talked to when I got the job, just about ideas and how he runs his program and does things, I called Jay.
Jay
Got his
Negus?
number, Jay
Oh, yeah,
Negus, and
he's
I talked to him
amazing.
about
He's
it.
a
and,
college
very,
program
very good job. They're very good job. And
Well,
they're a really good person.
Talk about that, how you run your program, because I think the best and something we're going to highlight this year, not just the top defenses, but top high school programs that are being run like college programs. Like I feel like I look at you guys. I
don't know if we're doing that. But
Well, you do fall training.
we do.
You
fall,
do
fall
a
we kinda-
tournament.
Fall, we kind of leave them alone a little bit because all the coaches are kind of
football.
coaching the fall sport
Well,
for
like the
most part.
winter. Sorry.
Yeah, winter we
bubble
go.
winter.
We do this bubble thing. Where I think a lot of people are doing something in the winter. We go to this
Yeah.
indoor facility in Farmingdale, and I know a lot of guys go to a place. We train twice a week, 16 times over, I guess like 2.5 month period, and we think it's pretty productive for us. We kind of tailor our training to who we think we want to become, more skillful, and you never can be skilled enough. I
Right.
mean, I think it was Jim Berkman, the coach of Salisbury. I think it might have been him, or I heard him speak, and he said, 2 teams play, and one team is more skilled than the other, in lacrosse, of course. Who wins most of the time? And the answer is the more skilled team is going to win. So I think a lot of us we all get caught up in X and O's a lot and want to be, have some X and O's with nuances or whatever. But at the end of the day, if the more skilled people, and I just keep hearing people talk about programs in college, Stony Brook women, spending a tremendous amount of time. Kim Hillier, assistant coach, Farmingdale girl.
Yep.
Tremendous amount of time on skills. West Genesee,
Yeah.
nobody spent more time on skill development. Everyone who coaches in college, Coach Tambroni, Coach Sheehan up at Lemoyne, all we hear about is the time they spent on skill development, on
Fundamentals.
straight fundamentals.
I think that's really smart for your program in particular, because you're like a tough, athletic, blue collar community. So if
Hopefully.
you get really like skilled players out of your development in your programs,
We're trying to be
kinda-
more skilled. We're trying to be more skilled.
Yeah.
I think that, in our league, the SAS guys are very skilled. The Massapequa guys are very skilled. They're doing exactly what we're doing. Anything that we do, we're not trying to
Port guys,
get.
they have some good
Oh,
skilled kids.
absolutely. I'm sorry, probably leaving them off.
No, that's okay. I mean,
but
do you think Oceanside's going to make a change now that Robbie's there?
Coach Brown will do a good job there? Yeah, they're good. I think there'll be some improvement there. I
Yep.
definitely think so. Absolutely.
I just said that because Chris Lucas said he's a 1994 alum.
Woo!
He said TK is the man. Coach chuckles.
Coach
And then,
Chuckles.
Nick Wool said Portland's top 5.
Nick
We're
Wall-
sleeping on Portland.
Eric
Nick Wall
Dunn
is the
said
man.
Connor
He's a great
Patterson.
guy.
Connor
Patterson.
Patterson, yes.
That's his senior.
Connor Patterson, I apologize.
Where's he going,
I
RPI?
You stunned me.
Where's he going, RPI?
Connor Patterson going to RPI, probably was the hardest worker in our program. Massive amount of improvement. Every time I did something, any kind of training or shooting or anything, always showed up.
That kid, I've seen
I
that
remember
kid.
I saw him
worker.
as a freshman,
Great
and
worker.
then like to what that kid is
Yeah,
now.
big athletic kid. He's
Yeah.
going to be good for us. He's going to do a good
Done
job for us.
told me
Done a
about
great job.
I hope he does great things
Yeah,
for
I
RPI.
apologize. I was put on the spot and I failed.
No.
Don't worry about it. You can't
That's on me.
remember.
But I
40-something
do
kids.
think, just to bring back to one thing, is I think no matter what we do in the summer, whatever we do, is never about getting ahead of anybody. It's just trying to stay even.
Yeah.
I mean, it's with things that Massapequa South are doing. I don't think we're doing anything revolutionary, anything more than anybody else is doing. We're just trying to stay even or get to even. Massapequa's and South are ahead of us in a lot of ways, and we're trying to get to even, and Suffolk schools in the A classification is, I don't worry about what the people in the B's and C's are doing because you're going to play them in a non-league game here and there, but at the end of the day, in May, you don't have to beat them. So, the people we have to beat to get who we want to be, you just try to get back with them to get to even and kind of be like them, and that's
When you look
think about that.
when you look east at Suffolk A, like what does that make you?
What does OC tell you about Suffolk A?
I always said this though. At the end of the day, one team comes out of there and one team comes out of Nassau.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to play for 48 minutes.
What?
And you don't have to be. I've
Yeah.
said this many times. My favorite thing people might have heard me say. You don't have to be the better team. You just got to be better for 48 minutes. And you don't have to be better for all 48 minutes. You're just certain minutes in the game you have to be better of the 48. So I look at it as, well, Suffolk A is a bear. I mean, you look at who they play. They have a couple weeks. They play 3 games a week in their league. Out of the gate, everyone plays a league game like March 18th or 20th is a league game. I mean, just the parameters of what it takes to compete there. Schools are big. Everyone's working at it. Great coaches.
Great coaches.
Yeah. Coach OC, the ACC of the ACC.
The SEC.
SEC, I'm sorry.
The SEC of high school lacrosse.
Of high school lacrosse, and I would agree with that. Or some people want to say the ACC of college lacrosse,
basketball,
or the AC or the
Well,
Big Ten.
two
or whatever,
schools.
Let's say yeah,
Two
sorry.
schools that are going to make noise this year that you haven't heard a lot about in Suffolk.
in the A's,
In the A's, Bayshore, Timmy Cox
Absolutely.
has a great group.
Riverhead.
Riverhead has a really good group. Riverhead has a really good face-off kid, which will help them. I went to the Riverhead Bayshore playoff game last year. It was a lightning delay game where they canceled it. I saw the beginning when Bayshore was winning. I didn't see Riverhead won the game.
Right.
But I think those two.
I saw Bayshore play in the summer at the Ward Melville high school tournament. I was very impressed. I thought they were very good. And, Bayshore is always a town that's always having kids go to private school, too. They're always going to parochials,
Brennan O'Neill.
Brennan O'Neill. Maybe
The best player in the country.
Best player in-
He's a Bayshore boy. There's a
He's
lot of Bayshore boys.
tremendous high school
I believe
player.
there's some
Wow.
more St. A kids that are Bayshore boys. I know there are girls.
And some Chaminade guys.
I know, and
some
Chaminade
Chaminade
guys
guys.
too.
Yeah,
So
Bonfini,
Bayshore does
yeah.
lose kids to parochial, 100%.
Sure they do.
They
And,
Timmy kept all
pretty
his
good
kids.
program.
They
Pretty
might
good
be the
program.
team.
Do
The
a
other
good
team
job.
that we're not even talking about is the 2 seed, Smith Down West.
Yeah. So let's say you escaped hypothetically Nassau County. Who would be the one team you want to play just for fun in Suffolk?
Well, I have two answers. Number one is there's nothing better than playing Ward Melville in a Long Island Championship. The Farmingdale Ward Melville game from the old
history,
days was always a great game. They beat us more than we beat them, but they're always great games. And I would say that my good friend is the head coach at West Islip. So
There you go.
That'd be cool.
In a
This is their
hypothetical
last year
world,
in A.
it's I guess, right? That's the
That's what they
story.
say.
Yeah, they're probably bumping
maybe
down
going
next
to be,
year.
and it's declining enrollment. But that would be
it's not big, you know
that would
what it
be.
is?
We're going to Walt Disney World kind of a game, like
Yeah.
doing this where you play each
Are you
other.
taking your Dalers anywhere off Long Island for games this year?
No.
Or is anyone coming to you that's kind of...
Well, we played Pleasantville the last few
Oh,
years,
yeah.
defending
Coach
Class
Kier.
D state champion. If anyone
He's a good
hasn't
coach.
seen Pleasantville ever play, I mean, that program has graduated a number of. Brian Reedus, I think, is starting at Fairfield. They're playing a lot of
That
Fairfield.
Georgetown
Great
kid that was
player
a stud.
Yeah, they're a great high school program for a school with a very
D-
small Class
D
D
school.
school,
Right,
very
it's like an Oyster
talented.
Bay
Besides
Very
Oyster
talented
Bay
group,
or Mattatuck.
Right, very talented group. And we played them. They're coming to us this year. Coach Kier, great guy. And we're going to Tappan Z
Oh, nice.
program in Westchester. My good friend Tommy Rooney is an alumnus of Tappan Z. Coach
Is that where Tommy's
coach
from?
there. Coach there now. Coach McIntosh, a good guy,
not
trying to
know
build the
that.
program. And we communicate a little bit on different topics and stuff. And we played him last year, and it was a fun time. And we brought him in. We fed him afterwards, and we're going to go there and reciprocate the deal. And
Are they going to feed you?
I hope so. We're gonna,
Some
hope
good Italian delis up there.
I believe him though. Coach Mac's a good guy, and they're one of those. They're trying to be an up and coming Westchester program and work at it and play people from other regions. And we think we've been talking about maybe next year trying to go off the island to either for a scrimmage
Cool.
or something like that. To
Not an
somewhere for a
overnight.
day. Probably not an overnight.
Are you waiting for Anthony Madelone to graduate before you go on an overnight?
No, I can trust Anthony Madelone.
You're going to tape his door. You have to bring Dennis Bond with you on that trip.
Oh, the famous Coleman Hall trips. Those are the best.
Door trip.
Those are the best.
Every kid should learn about taping the doors.
Give me one player that you loved coaching from back in the day. Give me one guy that for several reasons, because maybe just their personality or what they brought to the team that created good leadership.
I've been so lucky to have coached so many great not just great players but great people who are now great grown men. It's so hard to pick one person. Name
a few.
Just a guy
when I coached at Plainview, Evan Kostuka was Evan Kostuka, Lapenna, played at Hofstra, the junior world team guy, would just go into a game as if like a first check he was going to throw, he was going to find out if you really want to do this for the next 48 minutes. You know what I mean? Like he was going to find out. One of those guys. Just was like brought an unbelievable level of intensity to everything that he did. Was just one of those guys. I mean, there's just so many people. I mean, I don't play if anybody's.
So you got a Plainview guy. That's one.
Yeah.
Give me a Farmingdale guy.
Oh, there's so many.
Just give me one.
There's so many.
You can only give me one.
Guys. I'll tell you what everybody should know is that Matt Danowski and Steve Panarelli, Jerry Lamb as well, and Bernska Candy, they were defensemen. Matt was an offensive guy, and we had a lot of guys in that team. But I will tell you this much, that those two guys were the #1 recruits in the country at their positions, and they're on the same high school team, and they were very good best friends. But they went out, I tell kids this all the time, they went out every day, and they covered each other. And when it was on all the time. And it was like, pride was in play.
Make each other better.
And they made each other better every single day, And I think there's a lot to be said. That's a great memory. I'll never forget that. A Farmingdale guy I always remember is face-off guy we had, Danny Brennan.
Ooh.
That's a guy Coach Hartwell used to say, if I was in a war, I wanted one guy in my foxhole. I want Danny Brennan in my foxhole. The guy you want to be in your foxhole with, And Danny was a great player for us in high school, an absolute warrior. Played his entire junior year of high school with a torn labrum, very painful injury, and went to Syracuse, and they won the national championship. And he had a partially torn hamstring and a problem with his wrist, and was like all taped up and went out there. And
what's he doing now? Is he a Navy SEAL?
No, Danny, he probably could have been, one of those guys. And,
Give me a
How about Cold Spring? I got my favorite Cold Spring kid. Let me hear yours.
Well,
I think
you were there for 3 years?
I think it's
easy.
I was there for 4 years total.
Oh, 4 years.
We won two. But my last 2 years, I was lucky enough to be with a group that we won two state championships. And I left, went back to Farmingdale that I coached, and they won another one the year after that with a great group of kids. What a great group of kids. And I still watch every time I can watch Virginia play because of Ian Laviano playing at Virginia.
He's playing great.
Playing great at Virginia. But no disrespect to anybody else, but there was nobody like Matt Licciardi.
Nobody.
Matt Licciardi is my
favorite player at Cold Spring Harbor
is a
ever.
warrior.
Is Matt Licciardi.
Does everything. He's like,
he guy just refused to lose.
Love that kid's lacrosse
Yeah,
game.
he would. Just a guy. In this day and age, it's very hard. I'm a guy who said this to a lot of people, that leadership is hard these days. It's hard. We're old school guys, and we always remember when we had guys who led us, or were around guys who were great leaders. And in many ways, we don't foster leadership like we used to in schools. I think I have a little bit of soapbox. You don't have time for that now. But Matt Licciardi was a guy who didn't care what anybody said or thought about him. If you got in the way of what the goals the team had, not his goals, but the team goals, and his goals were the team goals.
The most selfless kid.
You could not get in the way.
He was so selfless.
The team was what mattered, and it was a buzzsaw, and he led it. He didn't care if you walked in the locker room and you were mad at him or hated him or hugged him or didn't care. He did whatever it took, and I think that leadership is very, very hard to find. It's very hard to find, and it's just rare, people that, because kids these days are just, it's not easy to lead. Social media makes it hard to lead, and just a lot of things that play in schools make it hard to want people to lead, but to find true leaders.
I think it's important that people realize that you need more people like Matt Licciardi and Matt Oldbetters and Matt Danowski's and the gentleman you mentioned from Plainview. People like that are role models.
I left so many out. I apologize.
Oh, listen, you can never. You've been coaching, no disrespect to your age, but you've been coaching a long time.
Yes, I have. I was lucky enough to start at a pretty young age.
And you coached a lot of great kids.
I was in a lot of good spots, yep.
And your coach still coaching them. So, but
very lucky. Think about it.
I had a conversation with a parent from Adirondack yesterday on the phone, and the mom was talking about how her son is a two-way midi. He's not a defensive midi. And I said to her, you're going to need to realize that whatever the coach decides your son is to help the team win, that's what he is. And I told the story of a young man that played with Corey, who you remember, who was the best offensive midfielder on Garden City's team, Terry Kennedy.
Terry Kennedy.
Remember Terry? He scored the game winner in the Woodstock Classic and was being interviewed by MSG. He was their best offensive midi in his graduating year. And he went on to play at Penn, and he was a 4-year starter, never came off the field, and played D-midi. And he was a great D-midi.
Yeah.
And he was selfless. And that's what parents need to understand. It's not about whose name's in the stat book. No. It's about how the team does and who helps that team.
Right.
How do you guys develop leaders? Like, how do you try to instill that like selfless kind of culture within your team? And,
it's hard. I think over the years I've tried a bunch of different things and of ways to like get people to understand that that it's the team that matters, not the individuals. And if everyone works to the same goal, or
talk about the stickers on your helmets. I feel like that's a great way that you guys teach that.
Well, I think a lot of places do something similar. We decided a couple of years ago to take all the sticks off a helmet. We put the kid's name in the back just because I guess it's kind of cool, and how they like it. And then we award stickers for like, a bunch of goals, assists, points, and ground balls and
team
different
wins.
things. Or sometimes team wins, so that maybe you're not in the starting rotation, but listen, you need scout guys. Anyone thinks you're going to win without scout guys? If anybody really believes you're going to win in any sport at any level, if the bottom half of your roster isn't pushing the top half, that's not true. The bottom half of the roster, whether they're bottom because they're younger and not playing, or because they're not as good as the people who you're playing with because they don't have
You see Townsend play?
talent.
Have you seen Townsend play this year?
Sure.
You know the kid Sunday? He's a senior. This is the first year he's playing.
First year he's playing.
He's their best kid,
Right.
best offensive kid.
And you got to, so you need to, but those guys feel like they're valuable.
Yeah.
That's one of the, Coach Krumenacker told me, when I first started, that those guys always have value. Everyone on the roster has value. Why are you there if you don't have value? Everybody's got a role to play in some job and something that you do. And some of the jobs are on game day and some of the jobs are on practice or in practice doing things that make us better. And everyone's got that guy. Look at you. I love wrestling. I never coached wrestling or wrestled. But I love wrestling because what really good wrestling coach will tell you is that every great guy has got a partner in the room, right?
Yep.
That makes that guy work and makes him get better. And your drill partner, right? And sometimes your drill partner, I guess, wrestles maybe a weight near yours, but sometimes he's a backup. He's your backup, right? You win the wrestle off, you wrestle in the match, he doesn't, but you need him, right? We all need those kind of people in sports. You need a scout team guy. You need someone to push everybody, or maybe there's you could have 7 different guys in your second midfield, but you pick 3. But if those 4 guys believe that I'm never out of it. I can still get my. Another thing I believe in: you should never. No one's ever out of it. Coach Harref said it all the time. Go back in every day and talk about guys and who's doing better and who's up and down and if guys never out of it, you figure out in practice. That's the thing parents don't well understand sometimes is. The game is the test, right? But it all happens in practice. If we're hiring and firing people on game day, if you're losing your job on game day, then we're not picking the right people to play on game day. And number one, we're not preparing. They're not preparing themselves, and we're not preparing them well enough. It's the practice is what figures out who plays on game day.
What I thought was kind of unique and interesting about high school sports, but also your program. I think you have, it's you. You got Eric, Kenny, Coach Campbell, anyone else that's on staff I'm missing. Those guys are all part of Farmingdale, their school system in terms of their job.
I don't have a teacher in the program. There's no one in the program. The 2 junior high coaches, Coach Weary and Coach Rezanik, and the JV coaches, Coach Foley, Coach Paccarella, and the 4 varsity guys, Coach Campbell, Coach Garcia. Everyone works in the school district.
So what does that mean, and how does that help your program?
I just think it's important that kids see this is not always possible. It's not always. It's a luxury.
Very rare.
It's very rare
rare
these days. And that we have 4 guys who are in the building, and kids see them, and everyone's got a slightly different job, different subjects, and they see them in the building. And sometimes, especially nowadays, I think kids of this generation more than anything else need more feedback. We grew up in an era where there's no feedback. You just went home.
Coach Burns said it great. He's like, this is the Y generation. He's like,
right.
You tell a kid to do something, or you're instructing him, they're gonna want to know why you're telling them to do it. And he's like, listen, you can either say, you can do what people used to say, because I told you so. Kids aren't gonna respond to that. He's like, or you can just explain to them your thought process. keep them included as to what you're thinking, why you're doing what you're doing, and you can then grow and develop the kids, and you can grow together as a team. And I think for you guys, are you guys explainers? Do you explain why you do things?
I think we try to be as much as we possibly can within the framework of trying to get through a high school practice. I think it's important to get into what we're doing and why. And I think in football, Coach Krumenak always said in football is that, the beauty thing about football is that you don't play in the off season very much. You really don't play it year round. Not like lacrosse or basketball, the sports where you play club. So we start football the first day, and the stance and start, right? How do you line up? Like, how do you get lined up?
Right.
A lot of guys in lacrosse, I think, the mistake that a lot of guys make is, especially, people that get into the sport maybe that don't have a teaching background necessarily. No fault of their own, is that they assume that kids know something from playing all the time. Just because you're playing doesn't mean you actually know anything. You're just playing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I never played high school basketball. I could join an over 50 rec league. I could set a pick and do a couple things here and there. But do I really know how to play basketball? No, I could probably use some instruction, right? You know what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Well, the assumption is that you know something.
Yep.
Steven Syrop?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He said
Stevie's
you guys.
dad.
He said great point. You're making a great point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steven,
But,
his
yeah.
son's a great
Oh yeah,
wrestler.
Yeah,
he's a great wrestler.
Sage meets wrestling. Very good team, very good season. Great for them. Good face-off guy.
All right, cool. So we have less than 2 minutes. Maybe just one piece of advice, kid or young coach, a kid that's playing lacrosse, aspiring to play at the highest level. What's something that you can offer up that you maybe communicate to maybe some of your Dalers or kid that you've helped in club programs or teams that you've coached in the past? Just a little piece of advice.
I just think in the era that we live in now, everything is so driven by. I'm not blaming anybody else. I'm just as guilty as anybody else. Everything is driven by coaches. When are we going to meet? When are we going to have weight room? When do we have bubble? When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? Right? And parents are the same way. From when kids were young age, get in the car and go to this thing, that thing, whatever it is, this training, that training. Somewhere along the way, you have to do it because you really want to do it. And I think the very best players in any activity, I don't care what sport you play or whether it's whatever it is you're good at, you have to put in extra time. If it goes beyond being taken somewhere by somebody.
Right.
Just go in the backyard with your stick and bang it against the wall or something. Or just you have to figure
Every
it out
person
yourself.
that Coach Hungerford spoke about tonight is one of those people.
Right.
And that's
I'd
why.
like to hope so. Yeah, I'd like to think.
Well, everybody, I can tell you,
would
Matt
think.
Licciardi, I saw him up at the fields, and
Yeah.
every other young man that you talked about, and I don't care who you are.
Right.
You want to be good at shooting free throws? Well, you better work
Right.
on it.
It also, I feel like that's a great point. It also stretches beyond the game. Like a kid like Licciardi, I got to imagine he's probably seeking some information, whether it be leaning on his coach or reading a book or connecting with groups and like learning about becoming a better leader, a harder worker, a better thinker. I think that aspect of the game, you can kind of see it in how people play. Like Matt Danowski, he's now becoming one of the better assistant coaches out there in the game because of the way he probably thinks about the sport. He doesn't just play, like he plays still, but he doesn't just play. He thinks about it in a different way.
I think a lot of us in my
level.
generation, Ron Caputos is a coach at Duke University, a good friend of mine. A lot of people I know in the game that are coaching at the highest level spend a lot of their time doing just that.
Right.
Learning if you spend time with John Danowski,
Right.
you go in his office, there's a lot of books about philosophy of coaching and not about lacrosse, but about like how do you just work with people
And motivate.
leadership and
How do you
motivation.
motivate?
How do you get people to do things you want? But I think the one thing to be wary of, I'll tell parents all the time, is, and I was guilty of it probably myself at 1 or 2 points with my own kids, is you can't make them get in the car after you get home and they're not happy of going. And you got to be careful. They got to really want to do it.
Awesome.
Cool.
You can't overdo it.
No.
Coach Hug, we appreciate your time tonight and your
Thanks
wisdom.
for having us. I appreciate it. I don't know if there's any wisdom, but some ideas, I guess, here and there.
And plenty of wisdom.
So Farmingdale Lacrosse, you can follow at Daler Lacrosse or Dalers Lacrosse on Instagram.
Dale's Lacrosse. We have a couple
Dalers.
different ones for each one. I think Farmingdale Lax on Twitter. I think it's Dale's Lacrosse on Instagram.
Cool.
Facebook, I'm failing at that, but we still have Facebook. But,
We got Instagram and Twitter at least. You can follow FLG Lax. We'll be posting about you guys all year, which is good.
Thanks for having us on and talking about
Yeah.
the program. I appreciate it. A lot of good programs out there. Thank you for talking about
Yeah,
this.
no, absolutely. So we'll be back on next week, same time. We got a special guest that we're not going to be releasing just yet, but we'll continue to.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you got to.
It's not fair.
I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah, you gotta follow us to know who's coming on.
Exactly.
Aw.
You got to get the Long Island Lacrosse Journal to know more about Farmingdale boys. You'll learn more about Farmingdale girls. And you'll learn a lot about every school in Long Island.
Covered every program, unless the coach.
Great
didn't
little
participate.
publication and really great.
Laura Lagoy Davide, always great. Thanks, coaches. Marcelo
Sandoval.
Marcelo
Sandoval,
Sandoval.
nice job, coach. And Angela Diamato Tudaro, great interview. Thank you very much. Hey.
Todoro, is
So-
that JoJo's?
Hey,
Is that
JoJo's
JoJo's
mom.
mom?
Marcelo
JoJo's
Sandoval,
mom.
great guy.
Coach JoJo this summer.
Oh, yeah,
Todaro?
Marcelo.
Yes.
It's gotta be
JoJo was
JoJo's.
the.
Angela.
Oh, it might be
He's on the
JoJo.
NASA team, right?
Or we have a Todaro in our program. Might be
JoJo
might
Todaro,
be the
County High
goalie's
School.
mom.
Angela.
Oh, Angela's
Yeah.
mom.
Angela.
It's Angela.
Yeah.
JoJo
Okay.
Great
Todaro,
interview.
good
Those are your
defenseman.
shout
High
outs.
School,
Yeah.
very good young defenseman.
Well, thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, and see you guys next week.
And you're up.